Hello and welcome to the Sister Series, the series where we go from your first purchase to your first 2,000 point army list and everything in between for the Adepta Sororitas forces. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a 2,000 point army list for the Sisters of Battle that has placed rather well within a tournament recently, and it's a list that I thought was very exciting as it shows some of the capabilities that the Sisters have. This list is a list that was played by a player named Zach D. Glass, and it came 4th out of 47 in the QGG Kickoff Ipswich tournament. This tournament was held in Ipswich, Queensland, Australia on April 29th. And this list consists of the Order of Our Martyred Lady for the Sisters of Battle, and it begins with a battalion detachment. And before we get into the army list itself, don't forget that the Armor of Contempt rules do apply to the Adepta Sororitas units and do give them additional AP reduction in many cases, so the Sisters of Battle have definitely seen a buff in power, which was well deserved because before seeing this list, most Sisters armies came in kind of middle of the pack, and a few of them came close to breaking into the top 4, but none of them had really reached the top 4 up until this point. It's also important to note that the Sisters of Battle Order of Our Martyred Lady has the special benefit of actually having a supplementary book, so it does gain a lot of power from that supplement in the Warzone Caradon second book, known as the Book of Fire. The Order of Our Martyred Lady does gain 2 special army-wide benefits, being that every time a unit gets destroyed within any given phase, at the end of that phase, you gain 1 Miracle Dice, and Miracle Dice are an incredibly powerful resource for the Sisters of Battle. In addition to that, any unit making attacks that is below starting strength gains +1 to that attack's hit roll, which does add up really quickly. However, do note that there's a bit of a contradiction in that the first ability favors a smaller model count unit as it's more likely to be wiped out, whereas the second ability favors a larger size unit as it wants to lose a couple of models and continue firing or attacking with that unit, making it a bit of a complicated army to play, and many times players will choose one of these abilities and stick with it, though I do think this list takes a bit of a unique take on the Order of Our Martyred Lady army-wide rules. With that being said, if you're interested in learning more about the Order of Our Martyred Lady, do check out the video for them in the Sisters of Battle playlist, as I did a whole video describing all of their special benefits from the main codex as well as the supplement in the Book of Fire, and that can give you a bit of an idea what the order can do, as it's pretty much an army into itself due to how many options it has. Like any battalion detachment, this list begins with its HQ choices. The first of these HQ choices is the very humble Canoness, and this Canoness has been given quite a few different abilities, as she is the warlord of the army, and Canonesses can have quite a few different options to make them very unique characters. In this situation, the Canoness has been given the warlord trait of Righteous Rage, which allows her to reroll hit and wound rolls with melee attacks. Then she has been given the Martyr Strength, which gives her +1 strength and +1 attack for each wound missing, up to a maximum of +2 in each of those categories. And don't forget, Martyr Strength is from the Book of Fire supplement, so it is something unique to the Order of Our Martyred Lady. And how does she gain 2 different warlord traits? Well, she utilizes the Exemplar of the Order stratagem, which is another Book of Fire ability, and it says for 1 command point, she can take any Order of Our Martyred Lady trait, in addition to a normal warlord trait, which allows her to stack some of those abilities to really make her a powerful competitor within melee. Then for the relic, she has taken a Blade of Sacrifice from the Book of Fire, which replaces her power sword and gives her +1 strength, as well as gives her the ability to sacrifice wounds in order to inflict mortal wounds instead of normal damage. This combined actually gives her a lot of ability to put out an incredible amount of damage, because all of a sudden she has a 2+ weapon skill, a total of 6 strength when using the full benefit of the Martyr Strength warlord trait, and has a total of 6 attacks when factoring in Martyr Strength as well. In addition to that, the Blade of Sacrifice allows her to sacrifice those wounds in order to trigger Martyr Strength without having to depend on your opponent. And in the situation where you don't wish to sacrifice any wounds, the Blade of Sacrifice is still a perfectly fine weapon, as it pretty much has the profile of a basic power sword, so you're not really losing it much for taking in that situation. And finally, she has been given 1 final ability, which is a blessing benefit, which is known as the Word of the Emperor, which allows her to select an enemy unit and make it fight last. In addition to that, it does have an active ability, which allows the ignoring of invulnerable saves, so that is an avenue that you can take as well. All this combined means that she's going to be attacking first and putting out quite an insane amount of mortal wounds instead of her regular damage, so she can pretty much go toe-to-toe with a variety of characters while doing an astounding amount of damage, which really shows the power of a Canoness and what one can do when different abilities are combined on a Canoness. That being said, a melee Canis is not the only way to build a Canis, and there are quite a few different ways of building a Canis, so she is very versatile in terms of what kind of playstyles she enables. And now, following the Canis is the second HQ choice of this battalion detachment. The second HQ choice is a Palatine, which has no additional upgrades except for being given a single blessing, which is the blessing of Rapturous Blows. Rapturous Blow says that it adds 1 strength and 1 damage to the melee attacks of the character bearing this blessing, and the only reason it is not used with the Canis is because it does not work with relic weapons, and the Blade of Sacrifice is a relic weapon, so there is a bit of a limitation in that sense, but it's still perfectly fine on a Palatine unit. Not only that, but the Rapturous Blows has an activated ability that allows generation of mortal wounds, but remember, that is a once-a-game ability, so it is very limited in that scope, and this is more of a utility Palatine than anything else. And a very low-cost HQ choice for an army such as this that very heavily utilizes other unit choices outside of the HQ choice of the Sisters of Battle. Now with the HQ choices covered, we move on to the troop choices of this battalion detachment. This battalion detachment includes quite a few different troop choices, in total having 6 different choices, most of which are rather unique to one another. The first of these troop choices begins with a unit of 20 Sisters of Battle armed with 4 Artificer Stormbolters. The Artificer Stonebolter is a rather powerful item and has a very powerful stratagem known as Blessed Bolts. And Blessed Bolts allows you to spend 1 command point to deal 2 mortal wounds on a hit roll of 6 instead of the Artificer Stonebolter's normal damage, though it is limited to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds within any usage of this stratagem. And this means if you're at 24 inches, you'll be getting 8 shots with these 4 Stormbolters, meaning that on average, you'll score roughly 2 mortal wounds, and within 12 inches, as this is a rapid-fire weapon, you'll get a total of 16 shots, meaning you'll pretty much get all 6 of those mortal wounds when you're within that 12-inch range. This is a very powerful ability, and it can generate quite a staggering amount of mortal wounds. However, what's interesting to note is this list is utilizing a unit of 20 Sisters, whereas normally you'll see something like this on Dominions. Though the 20 Sister block is a rather powerful unit in a lot of circumstances, and can easily make use of the additional hit modifier for being below starting strength when it does lose a couple models. So it is a very durable unit as well as one that can put out quite a lot of damage, and because you have such a large unit, it does have a lot of protection for those Stormbolters, whereas in a unit of 5 Dominions, it can be a little bit fragile, so oftentimes you can actually be denied those Blessed Bolt attacks if your opponent wants to focus down your small squad of Dominions, whereas with this unit of 20 Sisters, your opponent is going to have to commit a lot more to the unit than they would normally have to. Now moving on from this large unit of Sisters, we come to the next 2 troop choices, which are 2 units of 10 Battle Sisters each, and both these units include 2 Melta Guns as well as a Combine Melta on the Sister Superior. This gives you quite a lot of Melta Gun action and can be very devastating against many different armor types. It is interesting to note that these are 10 Sister units as opposed to 20 Sister units, so this is a very conscious decision to make use of the smaller units and break up the positioning of those Melta Guns as opposed to taking a second 20 Sister unit. So there's more mobility, and it lets you get that second Combine Melta on the second Sister Superior, so there is the benefit of that, and you still have enough of a buffer to make use of the Order of Our Martyred Lady army-wide rules in that situation. Though at the same time, it does make it a little harder for your opponent to take out all of the Melta Guns, as they have to target 2 individual squads, and when they do take one of them out, you do gain that Miracle Dice, which does give you a little more benefit from the special rules of Our Martyred Lady. This is interesting how these 2 units are broken up, as it shows the way you protect those Stonebolters and the way you protect the Melta Guns is very different, so you don't want to always default to the same style of squad, but rather you want to consider the type of weapon that you're utilizing within the squad and what kind of squad size and composition best fits that style of play for that weapon used. And this is one of the best examples I've seen, as it's very diverse in weapon utilization and it's seen in one list that really makes full use of those different options. Now moving on to the 4th troop choice, it's way more basic, with it being simply a 5 Sister unit and with no additional upgrades. This is most likely an objective gathering unit and an action performing unit that can be sacrificed rather easily in order to gain the Miracle Dice and to annoy your enemy. Nothing particularly special in this unit, but once again it does show the flexibility you have with different Sister units within the troop choice of the Sisters of Battle. After the 4th troop choice, you have 2 troop choices being composed of 10 Novitiates each, and Novitiates are a new unit from the Kill team that has been introduced to the 40k world. And you can see here the Novitiates are armed with their pistols and melee weapons, as the Novitiates are best served as a low-cost melee unit that can be a bit of an annoyance to an opponent. I do like seeing them see some play, as I did think they were going to be a rather interesting and good unit when they were previewed, though there was always a question of how good they would be because of the versatility of basic Sisters of Battle. Though as you can see here, even alongside the vast versatility of the Sisters of Battle troops that this list has incorporated, even here the novitiates can find a home and do rather well. And it's also interesting to note that both these squads of novitiates have been given a power sword unto superior, so it does give them even more melee focus, and it's good to see that the different special weapons in this list are utilized to pretty much their maximum potential, as you'll see the more we look at this list, the more we'll see all those different special weapons coming together on the different squads. And moving along from the troop choice, there is a single transport unit being a single Rhino from the Sisters of Battle. And normally I'd make a prediction of which unit would go into the Rhino, but as we'll notice with this list, there are quite a lot of different units that can go within this Rhino transport, and that there are a ton of different combinations of different units and options that you can choose for this transport specifically, as it's a list that has a lot of infantry versatility. And now that we've covered the basic choices of this battalion detachment, let's take a look at the different special choices that this army list has decided to incorporate. To begin with the special choices, we'll start by looking at the elite slot within this army list. The army begins with 2 units of 8 Repentia each, and the Repentia are absolutely blender units that are still very good even in the 9th edition rules, despite all of the different changes that the army has seen, and I definitely think they're a unit that's going to stay considering how much damage they can do. Though do keep in mind they're a bit of a glass cannon unit, so they do have a little bit limitation in that sense. This is definitely a unit I would expect seeing within the Rhino transport, though there are 2 units and only 1 transport. There are a lot of different ways that you can pair them with other units, and you always have the option of putting them in strategic reserves, or marching them up the table with a Repentia Superior, though that does expose you to some risk in some situations. However, they do have a decent enough feel no pain save, and in a list like this that has so many infantry choices, it might be overwhelming for your opponent to target all the different units that they want to target, so they do have a little protection in that sense as well. Now the third elite choice is going to be a new model from the new 9th edition codex, and one that is incredibly popular, this unit being a Dogmata, which has been given an extra relic known as the Sigil of the Ecclesiasticus. This sigil allows the bearer to know 1 additional hymn, and the bearer can also intone 1 additional war hymn within the command phase. For the different hymns of battle, all war priests know the war hymn. In addition to that, the 2 hymns that were given to this Dogmata are the Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude, which allows her to remove any negative psychic effects on a friendly unit and prevents those psychic effects from affecting the selected unit. And the second hymn of battle is the Verse of Holy Piety, which, once activated, gives an additional sacred rite that's not already active for your army to a unit of your choosing. So this player clearly likes his sacred rites, as we'll see in the near future that they've taken other abilities that give you a little more access to different sacred rites. Don't forget also that the Dogmata is a very powerful unit, allowing a selected core unit within 6 inches to have objective secured and double up their objective secured if they already have the objective secured bonus. In addition to that, she also gives the aura that friendly core units within 6 inches can shoot and can perform an action without failing it within the same turn. This means that all of a sudden that 20 block of sisters can position on an objective, hold it very securely as it'll probably outnumber any other enemy objective secured units, and also fire while performing an action if they so choose, giving you quite a lot of power in that one unit. And in addition to that, the Dogmata can give them additional sacred rites, as well as preventing psychic powers from affecting them. That does make quite a scary unit of those 20 Sisters of Battle, and shows the power of the Dogmata as she's a pretty much evergreen staple within different Sister of Battle lists. Following the elite choices, there are 2 pseudo-elite choices, being non-organization units due to their special abilities. The first was non-organization units, being a Repentia Superior to accompany one of those units of the Sisters of Repentia. The Repentia Superior has the nice ability that she can allow a unit of Sisters of Repentia to advance and charge in the same turn, thus allowing her to accompany one unit of Sisters of Repentia up the board, while the other goes into strategic reserves or takes residence within the Rhino transport. Overall, the Repentia Superior has seen a decent enough buff within the 9th edition codex, giving her a lot more use than she once saw before, though she is definitely a unit that you have to consider when taking, as she's not right for every single list, and it really comes down to how you wish to build your army. Though she is a decently inexpensive enough character with a decent enough benefit that makes her a decent consideration in many situations. As for the second non-force organization slot, This goes to a Sister Hospitaller who has been given an extra Warlord trait. The Sister Hospitaller is a nice unit that gives friendly Ministorum units within 3 inches a 6+ Feel No Pain save and can heal D3 wounds on those units using a second ability. She can definitely accompany different units and help them out, though do keep in mind she's not the best with Repentia, considering the Repentia have a 5+ Feel No Pain save naturally. There is a way she can revive units using a certain stratagem, so she does have a way of bringing up units. Usually you'll want to position her near high impact units that can do a decent amount of work. The Warlord trait she has been given is the St. Catherine's Legacy, which is another Warlord trait from the Book of Fire supplement. The Legacy of St. Catherine says that the spirit of the Martyr's Sacred Rite is active for the bearer of this trait, and it also provides an order that says that when an order of our Martyred Lady model destroyed within 6 inches of the bearer of this trait, and the Sacred Rite of the Spirit of the Martyr is active, that model inflicts a mortal wound to the attacker on a 5+. This definitely isn't a trait I would normally consider, but I can definitely see the justification for it, as there are definitely situations where it can come in handy, and when you have so much infantry as this list does, it does have a little more application than normal. Generally, it's something I'd probably overlook in many lists, though it does show that there's a lot of different ways that a player can utilize different Warlord traits, abilities, models, and relics in different ways that might not be as mainstream and still be incredibly successful. And following the elite slots, this list includes 2 different fast attack choices, being 2 units of 5 Seraphim each, with each of these units being given 4 hand flamers each, and one of the superiors and one of the units being given a plasma pistol and a power sword. The hand flamers are definitely a perfectly fine weapon and can help with clearing out swarms as well as dealing some annoyance damage on a unit that can deep strike very effectively and be an objective gathering unit in situations where their hand flamers will not come in handy. I do think the plasma pistol and the power sword are probably a bit of a point sink, though they do make the superior significantly stronger, and it might be less of a case of it being a point sink and more a case of it being just a points limitation, where the player would have taken the same items on the second squad if given the opportunity to, but just didn't have the points to do so. In any case, Seraphims are definitely popular units, and they have been pretty much relegated to the hand flamers within the 9th edition rules as Deadly Descent has been changed, so they no longer get the extra range on those Inferno pistols when deep striking in, meaning that the Inferno pistols are incredibly limited in terms of their application. Not only that, but there are plenty of different melt options within the forces of the Adepta Sororitas, so the Inferno pistols were more of a nice trick to have, but not something the army depended on, and the hand flamers are definitely perfectly fine, even in non-Ebon Chalice lists. Now finally, this list concludes with some heavy choices, being 3 identical units of 5 Retributors each, with the Retributors carrying 4 Multi-Meltas and each unit of Retributors having 1 Armarium Cherub, allowing them to get a little more value out of some of those Multi-Meltas. This really gives this list a ton of firepower, as the Multi-Meltas are incredibly heavy hitting and can put out an insane amount of damage, not to mention that in total you have 12 of those heavy Multi-Meltas, and that's a staggering amount of Melta shots, especially when you consider you still have those Meltagun shots in the basic sister units. And as you can see, this is a list that goes very heavy in infantry while having very powerful melee attacks and a plethora of different shooting profiles on the different infantry units. And I do think that's something that is very unique to the Sisters of Battle, as they're one of the few armies that can really do this very effectively without including a lot of tanks, thanks to those Retributors and the different plethora of special weapons that their basic sister units can carry, and the different ways you can format those basic sister units, as well as the raw power of the Repentia, and how you can build different canises within a Sisters of Battle army list. That being said, the other interesting thing I'll say is that I looked at quite a few different Sisters of Battle lists, and this is the only one that reached top 4, but there were definitely a handful that were just outside of top 4 in rather large tournaments, so I'll probably return and take a look at those as well. And I'll mention that the very interesting thing about all of the different Sisters of Battle lists is that all of the different lists I looked at were all incredibly different, with a lot of them having very different orders, such as this being an Order of Our Martyred Lady list, while other lists were orders like Bloody Rose and Valorous Heart, while also featuring very different army compositions, such as going very heavy on special characters or more armored units, as Sisters of Battle in the 9th edition Codex have access to some very interesting units such as Mortifiers and Paragon Warsuits, as well as a plethora of different tanks and different ways of building their army, with a huge variety of special characters. So that's something I definitely want to take a look at, because it does show the different versatility and different interesting builds that the Sisters of Battle can have. In any case, what kind of playstyle do you guys prefer when building a Sisters of Battle list, as there are a lot of different ways of building one. Do let me know in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for watching. And if you know anyone who may benefit from this content, please do share, as it really does help the channel out, as well as those who may benefit from the content. As always, I want to give a big thank you to my patrons. You're all awesome people, and as always, have a great day. Bye.